are here with Seif from New Fort Construction, talking all about converting an existing garage into a rental unit, which is a very hot topic right now. Seif, thanks so much for coming on the show.
Thanks, Justin. It's, I think, something that a lot of people are looking for, and lots of people ask questions about it, and there's so much to get into.
Absolutely, right? And I did have you, we interviewed each other before, but not on this network. So I'm excited to have you on because this information I think is pretty critical. Like you said, everybody's kind of talking about it, and there is a lot of question marks around it. So let's go off from, I guess, the bat here. If somebody's looking to convert their garage, what are the things that they need to consider?
Couple things. Number one, you got to see what municipality you're in, because depending on the municipality, you have different size garden suites that you can build. You know, Brampton has probably one of the smallest, 370 square feet, and then Toronto, where you can build 650 per level, so you usually end up with 1,300 square feet. So one, you got to figure out what are you building, okay? Two, you got to figure out, is there an existing garage there, or are you building brand new? If there's an existing garage, it's $100,000 and up. No ifs, ands, or buts, no matter what the size is.
In construction cost, over 100, even if the garage is there, it'd still be over $100,000?
Correct, yeah. Okay. There's a lot of lump sum charges that doesn't matter what the size of the garden suite is. A kitchen's still a kitchen, a bathroom's still a bathroom, so there's a lot of one lump sum charges in there. And if you're building a brand new one, you gotta do new foundations, permits, and all that. It's $180,000 and up, depending on the size that you're building. So it's very important to note that, because we get a lot of requests. I would say maybe around 80% of our requests where people are like, you know, I got $10,000 to $20,000 or $30,000. I want to build a tiny home in my backyard, and that's very difficult. But I think social media might be part of that problem, because you know
it could be, right? And even then, like when you go to, because people sometimes think, well, I finished my own basement for, you know, I did it myself for $15,000. Why couldn't I do my garage, right? But they're underestimating a lot of things, like even just the engineering aspect of it and the cost. And then I know there's some structural components too with the garages that people sometimes overlook. Like, can you touch on that a little bit? Like,
well, when you're doing a new build structure, structural, you're doing all that from scratch. Either your architect or if you have a structural engineer involved, they're going to be doing a full design package right from the get-go. But when you're retrofitting an existing structure, of course, there's some costs that you save on because you have a decent shell. But it's up to the architect to go through, figure out, is that decent shell in fact decent, right? Because it might have been fine to stay as an abandoned garage for a couple of years, but it may not be fine to be a permanent home, which should be lasting for many, many more years.
I like that you said abandoned garage, because in Hamilton, a lot of people that want to convert these garages, and I'm sure you see them too, they're like these dilapidated structures. You know, the roof is bowing in and the walls are, you know, not up to code to the thickness, which I think is an issue you ran into on one of your projects too, right? Was that the walls weren't thick enough in a garage in one of the projects you did there?
Yeah, so one of the building code requirements when you are retrofitting a new garage or building a brand new garage, you have to build it up to today's code, right? And that involves a certain amount of insulation in the perimeter walls. Very different from a basement apartment retrofit, which is just meet or exceed, right? So if you have a wall that's not thick enough in your basement, you can just fill it with whatever insulation you want. But a garden suite is a home, so you have to have 6 inches of insulation. And a lot of these things aren't built with 2x6s on the outside, they're built with 2x4s. So you start to get into a point where the type of contractor that does basements, for example, may not be the best fit for the garden suite.
Yeah, that makes sense, right? A lot of those older garages are just the 2x4 built. So definitely that. When it comes to running utilities, how does that process work? Is there a way people can install things that get away from having to run gas, water, hydro? Like, what are some of the systems that people can use, or what would they expect when they're running utilities from the house?
Heat pumps are really popular because there's a lot of government rebates on them. So most people stick with heat pumps in these garden suites, and they only need power. So pretty much when we do most of our garden suites, we're only running power and water, not gas. Though we do have a couple that we're running gas in, but they're a lot nicer. One of them that comes off the top of my head is in Toronto, 1,300 square feet, in-floor heating. So it's a completely separate system, and that's a different beast of its own because the budget is far, far larger than the typical accessory dwelling unit.
Yeah, of course, right? And it's so, I think it's interesting you talked about heat pump. We actually did a segment on heat pump last year, which watch that on demand if you haven't seen it. But it is a pretty cool It's pretty cool because you really just need power to run that, right? So it's a lot easier to run hydro, I imagine, from the house. And then also that's another thing. People think if they're on a corner property, where do they pull the utilities from? Are they still pulling it from the house, or can they pull it from?
You can technically pull it straight from the city lines, but there's no advantage because you can't really sever it. And when you go straight to the city line, it doesn't fall, the service upgrade doesn't fall under a lot of the programs that the city have to offer it. So it's going to end up costing you a lot more. Some of the curb cuts, you might have to hire city contractors to do them. So every single one we've done, we've tied into the main unit first. And then from there, the main unit is tied into the city service.
Perfect. And then I think too, it's also important touching on sort of the value of these units, the cost, and why people should consider doing it, right? Because like you said, a lot of people call and they're probably like, I got 10, 20,000, I want to convert my garage, right? And then when they hear that the quote is something like, I don't know, 150,000 or something like that, they probably get turned away. But I know you were explaining to me sort of the advantages when we compare it to what else is going on in the market. Like, what are your thoughts on it?
I would say if you have the budget for it, like I said, 100,000 and up to retrofit an existing garage, or 180 and up to buy brand new or build brand new, sorry, there's nothing that is going to give you a better return, right? It's not going to give you that return today, but if you're a long-term investor, I'm talking 5+ years, 5 years at the bare minimum, this is the best bang for your buck. People are buying bungalows, like older bungalows that are barely 1,000 square feet, 2-bedroom for 600,000. But at the same time, a lot of those people are saying, well, you know, the garden suite being 500-600 square feet, costing me $200,000 is too expensive. And the only reason for that is the affordability. It's just because there isn't products that are specifically available and available enough to purchase those with a down payment. So most people are putting that as cash out of pocket, which is why they feel it's so expensive.
Well, that's great information. Seif, thanks so much for coming on the show again. I really appreciate it.